I don't know about you, but ever since I first blasted through Metal Slug, I've been hooked on that crazy mix of over-the-top action, wild bosses, and those iconic pixel explosions. But yeah, honestly, playing Metal Slug again and again kind of bored me eventually. There are so many awesome games out there that capture that same retro run-and-gun magic, but most people don't even know they exist. In this video, I'm going to discuss 16 absolutely mind-blowing Metal Slug clone games from the past that every retro fan should check out. In the meantime, drop your pick in the comments that matches the Metal Slug vibe.
No sweat!
Mercenary Kings Reloaded. Let's start our list with Mercenary Kings. It is a 2D run-and-gun from Tribute Games, with the Reloaded edition hitting PC, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PlayStation Vita. You pick a mission, drop into a big map, and have a time limit to finish your objective. Then, warp back to base. The hook is the crafting loop. You kill enemies, open chests, gather materials, and use them to build new guns piece by piece. Barrel, stock, magazine, ammo type, the works. That makes it feel more like an action platformer with progression than a straight arcade rush. The pixel art is colorful and cartoonish, with goofy enemies and lots of personality. Some players think the mission repetition is a bit grindy, while others really enjoy refining builds and chasing faster clears. If you're a Metal Slug fan who also likes tinkering with gear and replaying missions in co-op, this is a solid pick.
Crime rules the streets. When the citizens are in trouble, they call the authorities. When the authorities are in trouble, they call the bounty hunters.
Huntdown. Huntdown is a great option if you want something more street level and arcade type. It's a side-scrolling run-and-gun released in 2020 by Easy Trigger on PC, Xbox One, PS4, Switch, and later mobile. You play as bounty hunters taking down criminal gangs in compact urban levels, running, jumping, and using a simple cover system to duck behind objects while you shoot. The gameplay loop is straightforward. Move through the stage, clear out enemies, grab weapons that drop, and finish with a boss fight that usually has clear patterns to learn. Visually, it leans on detailed 16-bit style pixel art with lots of graffiti, neon, and small animated touches, plus a punchy synth soundtrack. People who already like classic side-scrolling shooters tend to really praise how responsive and polished it feels, especially in co-op. If you enjoy Metal Slug but want something a bit more grounded and focused on short, replayable stages, Huntdown works really well. Blazing Chrome. So, Blazing Chrome is basically the no-nonsense entry on this list. It was released in 2019 by Joymasher on PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. It's a classic-style run-and-gun set in a future ruled by machines. You pick a character and move through 6 linear stages, running, jumping, dodging, and shooting through large waves of enemies. You start with a basic machine gun and can pick up extra weapons like a grenade launcher, energy whip, or particle cannon. Plus, you do a melee attack if you shoot at close range. There are also segments where you ride vehicles or hop into mechs, which helps mix up the pacing. The difficulty is on the tougher side, with one-hit deaths unless you have a support bot active, so it rewards pattern memorization and clean movement. Fans and reviewers often call it one of the better modern throwbacks to Contra-style and Metal Slug-style action, especially for players who like tight, short games they can replay. Guns of Fury. Guns of Fury fits into that modern, indie, but retro-inspired space in a pretty approachable way. It's a 2D action platformer with run-and-gun combat, available on PC and mobile, and it mixes shooting with light exploration and progression. You move through side-scrolling stages, blasting enemies, dodging projectiles, grabbing coins and upgrades, and slowly improving your character. The gunplay is simple but responsive, so it feels good even if you're just looking for something casual to pick up. The visuals go for a stylized, slightly cartoonish pixel look rather than ultra-detailed sprite work, which makes it easy to read what's happening on the screen. It's not trying to be as hardcore as something like Contra. It's more about accessible action with some light Metroidvania-style elements. People who enjoy mobile and indie shooters tend to like it as a comfort food kind of game. If you're a Metal Slug fan who wants something lighter and more modern, but still side-scrolling and shooty, this is definitely worth a look. Demon Front. Demon Front is probably the closest arcade-era Metal Slug clone on this whole list. It's a 2002 arcade run-and gun from IGS, built for the Polygame Master hardware, and it follows the same basic formula of moving left to right, shooting enemies, and hopping into vehicles. The big twist is the Spirit Beast system. Each character has a pet that you can summon for extra attacks or to use as a shield, which adds an extra layer of offense and defense management. Visually, it's very similar to late 90s Neo Geo games with big, detailed sprites, smooth animation, and lots of explosions and environmental detail. The stages are full of fantasy-styled enemies and bosses, so it feels like Metal Slug crossed with a more mythical theme. Arcade fans and emulation enthusiasts often mention Demon Front as one of the better non-SNK running guns from that period. If you love the feel of classic arcade Metal Slug and want something that hits very close mechanically, this one is a must-try. Broforce. Broforce goes in a totally different direction by turning the whole run-and-gun idea into an over-the-top joke. Developed by Free Lives and fully released in 2015 on PC, PS4, and later the Switch, it's a side-scrolling shooter where you play as parodies of famous action movie heroes. The twist is that the levels are fully destructible, so your bullets and explosions chew through the terrain, even turning the stage into chaos. Every time you rescue a prisoner, your character changes, so your weapon and abilities keep rotating on the fly. That makes the gameplay feel fast, silly, and unpredictable, especially in co-op. The pixel art is bright, exaggerated, and full of tiny gags in the background, so it doesn't take itself seriously at all. Players love it for the humor, the crowd-pleasing explosions, and the way a simple mistake can collapse half the map. If you enjoy Metal Slug spectacle but also want to laugh while everything blows up, Broforce is an easy recommendation. Alien Hominid. Alien Hominid started life as a flash game and then grew into a full console running gun, which already gives it a bit of cult status. Developed by the Behemoth, it was released on GameCube, PS2, and later Xbox 360 and other platforms in the mid-2000s. You play as a tiny alien trying to recover your spaceship parts while fighting off cartoon FBI agents and other weird enemies. The gameplay is fast and a bit brutal, with one-hit deaths on the default settings, lots of projectiles to dodge, and a mix of ground combat and vehicle segments. What makes it stand out is the hand-drawn art style. It looks more like an edgy cartoon than a traditional pixel game, with thick outlines and exaggerated animations. Many players remember it for its difficulty and its very distinct visual identity. If you're a Metal Slug fan who likes tight, punishing arcade gameplay and doesn't mind a more chaotic, cartoony look, Alien Hominid will definitely scratch that itch. Iron Meat. Iron Meat is basically a side-scrolling shooter built around fast movement, heavy firepower, and very gory biomechanical aesthetic. You're running through an industrial and flesh-covered environment, mowing down waves of enemies and dodging dense bullet patterns. The game leans into that classic formula of short stages, tough bosses, and lots of deaths while you learn patterns. Weapons feel punchy, and you're constantly switching between guns and positioning to stay alive. Visually, it goes for detailed pixel art with a strong horror edge, closer to something like Contra 3 than a lighthearted cartoon. People who like it tend to praise the weight of the shooting and the aggressive soundtrack. If you're a Metal Slug fan who wants something darker, more grotesque, and mechanically focused on pure arcade challenge, Iron Meat is a very natural next step. Mighty Goose. Mighty Goose is the goofy but slick pick on this list. It's a modern run and gun where you play as a heavily armed bounty hunter goose, clearly riffing on Metal Slug's vehicles, pacing, and screen-filling explosions. The gameplay is straightforward. Move right, shoot constantly, grab temporary power-ups, and call in special abilities to clear the screen when things get hectic. Levels are broken into short missions with boss fights that telegraph their patterns, so it feels friendly even if you're not a hardcore player. The art style is bright and chunky, with clean pixel art and a lot of character in the animations. It's not as punishing as the old arcade titles, and that's part of its appeal. It's approachable, funny, and very pick up and play. Players often mention how satisfying the sound design and screen shake are when you unload with the stronger weapons. If you love Metal Slug spectacle but want something lighter and more comedic, Mighty Goose fits perfectly. Zombotron. Zombotron shifts the formula by adding physics and a slower, more methodical pace, instead of pure left-to-right sprinting. You explore multi-layered levels on an alien planet, shooting enemies, triggering traps, and using the environment to your advantage. It plays more like a run-and gun with light platforming and some exploratory elements. You're searching for exits, grabbing loot, and experimenting with how barrels, vehicles, and structures react when hit. The gunplay feels weighty, and enemies can be crushed, blown up, or knocked around, which keeps counters interesting. Visually, it uses a more modern, slightly grim sci-fi look rather than retro pixels, with chunky character designs and moody lighting. It started life as a browser series, so there's a bit of that old-school indie charm baked in. People who enjoy it usually point to the physics sandbox feel in the sense of poking at the level to see what happens. If you're a Metal Slug fan who likes shooting but also enjoys experimentation and slower pacing, Zombotron is definitely worth a shot. G-Warrior. G-Warrior is one of the more obscure picks, but it lines up nicely with that arcade-style run-and-gun expectation. It sticks to the basics: side-scrolling stages, a military or sci-fi theme, and a focus on shooting enemies while dodging projectiles and hazards. The structure is usually simple: move forward, clear sections, and deal with mid-bosses and end-of-stage bosses that rely on recognizable patterns. Visually, it leans on classic sprite work with readable backgrounds and clearly outlined enemies. So it feels familiar if you grew up with 16-bit and early arcade shooters. Players who know about it tend to see it as a solid, no-frills option rather than a big reinvention. If you're into Metal Slug and just want another straightforward, side-scrolling shooter to add to your rotation, G-Warrior is a nice, deep cut to mention in a retro-focused video. Intrusion 2. Intrusion 2 is a great pick if you want something that feels physically heavier than Metal Slug. It's a 2D action platformer with strong run-and-gun elements, built around a detailed physics engine. You're climbing snowy mountains, infiltrating bases, and fighting mechs, and almost everything in the environment reacts. Crates slide, enemies get knocked back, and big bosses smash through terrain. Gunplay mixes with climbing, riding robots, and using the physics to your advantage during fights. The art style is lo-fi but clean, with a gritty industrial sci-fi vibe. It's not as purely bullet hell as other games here, it's more about movement, dodging, and positioning in slightly longer encounters. People who like Intrusion 2 often talk about the boss fights, which feel big and dynamic, almost like mini set pieces. If you're a Metal Slug fan who enjoys more physical interaction with the world, pushing stuff, riding machines, and wrestling the environment as much as the enemies, Intrusion 2 is a really interesting curveball.
Deathwish Enforcers. Grab crime by the balls and twist them off. 4-player co-op action.
Deathwish Enforcers Special Edition. Deathwish Enforcers Special Edition goes for that 90s cop movie arcade feel rather than a military war zone. It's a side-scrolling shooter where you play as an over-the-top law enforcers, cleaning up crime-ridden streets. The core gameplay is familiar. Run, jump, and shoot with power-ups and special weapons that help you clear dense enemy waves. Levels are structured like classic coin ops with mid-bosses, end bosses, and lots of crowd control movement. The presentation leans into parody and exaggeration, cheesy one-liners, colorful enemies, and references to old action flicks. Visually, it uses a retro pixel-heavy style with clear silhouettes and strong color contrast, so everything reads well during hectic moments. Players who pick it up generally enjoy it as a throwback night title with friends or solo. If you're into Metal Slug but want something themed around cops, crooks, and 90s grindhouse energy instead of soldiers and tanks, Deathwish Enforcers Special Edition fits that niche nicely. CT Special Forces series. The CT Special Forces games on Game Boy Advance and PS1 are basically Metal Slug on handheld for a lot of people. They're 2D run-and-gun shooters with a mix of on-foot missions, vehicle sections, and occasional stealth or parachuting segments. You move through compact levels, shooting soldiers, rescuing hostages, and grabbing new weapons along the way. The controls are a bit more deliberate than some arcade titles, but once you get used to them, games scratch a similar itch. The visuals on GBA especially are impressive for the hardware. Detailed sprites, decent animation, and stages that feel like pocket-sized versions of bigger console shooters. Reception has usually been hidden gem rather than blockbuster, especially among retro handheld fans. If you love Metal Slug and want something to play on the go, or just like that early 2000s budget shooter charm, the CT Special Forces series is a really nice recommendation to drop in a video. Dolphin Blue. Dolphin Blue is another deep-cut arcade pick that lines up very closely with Metal Slug's structure. It's a side-scrolling run-and-gun from the early 2000s, released on Sega's Naomi hardware. The big hook is a lot of the action takes place over water. You're riding dolphins or other sea vehicles while blasting enemies and dodging projectiles. On foot, it plays very much like a classic arcade shooter. Run, jump, shoot, and toss grenades with big bosses anchoring each stage. The art style mixes anime-inspired character designs with bright, almost Dreamcast-era backgrounds, giving it a slightly more modern look than 90s Neo Geo titles. Because it never got a huge home release, it has a bit of a cult if you know reputation among arcade and emulation fans. If you're a Metal Slug fan and want something that feels familiar but with a distinct ocean theme and Naomi-era flair, Blue Dolphin is a perfect oddball to highlight.
The military android has landed in the Old Town area. Proceed to that point right away and stop them. You are the last hope. Good luck.
Cyberwhip. Cyberwhip is one of those games that feels like an early stepping stone toward Metal Slug. It's a run-and-gun shooter by SNK released in 1990 for the Neo Geo MVS arcade system, then on Neo Geo AES and later Neo Geo CD. You play as Rick and Brooke, two soldiers sent down to shut a rogue supercomputer that has turned Earth's android army against humanity, fighting through multiple side-scrolling stages packed with enemies and bosses. Along the way, you pick up limited ammo weapons like flamethrowers and rocket launchers, and can swap between them to manage ammo. Plus, there are core bot orbs that orbit you and damage enemies on contact. A neat quirk is the elevator choice between stages. Pick up or down, and a wrong choice sends you into a tougher sub-area before you can move on. Critics at the time often called it a Contra-style clone, but later retrospectives point to it as an obvious predecessor to Metal Slug in a feel and pacing. For a Metal Slug fan, it's a cool way to see SNK figure out this formula before the series we all know showed up. Okay everyone, that's all for 16 absolutely mind-blowing Metal Slug clone games. I hope this list has brought back nostalgic memories and gave you some awesome new games to check out. If you had fun or discovered a gem you'll play next, drop a like and tell me in the comments which one you'll dive into first. And hey, hit subscribe so you don't miss more retro gaming goodness. That's all for now.